Okay, where did you go?
I don't know what just happened. All right, so welcome to the Day and Night Podcast, beautiful people. This is your host, Matthew. All right, we got another good one for y'all today. Um, Hopefully, everybody is enjoying their weekend. So, as always, beautiful people, your thoughts becomes your belief, and your belief becomes your manifestation. All right, Mark, what you got for us?
Well, I just want to start off by saying hello, everybody. How y'all doing? It's beautiful, like Matt said, it's beautiful out here in San Antonio. It's hot. The heat is back, that's for sure. Just got in, so I'm ready to do this. So this one is kind of spur of the moment. It was something that caught my attention because I'm doing my own self reflection. So I think this kind of correlates to the topic. And I just want you, Matt, and the viewers out there, if anybody even do any self-evaluation on themselves, do people just kind of deal with how they are, don't really stop and do a self-reflection. I think that's important. I think we all need to, no matter if you're younger or older, I think is at some point we need to just self-reflect. So today's topic is self-identity or true identity. What is your true identity? Okay, so I'm gonna start off by a definition. So anybody that might have their own way of, defining it, this is by Webster. True identity refers to a person's sense of self, which is shaped by their unique characteristics, affiliations, and social roles. It encompasses memories, experiences, relationships, and values. Despite changes in circumstances, a person's identity remains continuous over time, right? So identity is also reflected in the choice we make, which reveal or reveal our values on who we are. Okay. So if you want to break it down in the definition for identity, is the set of qualities, beliefs, personality traits, experience, and or experiences that characterize a person or group. Identity emerges during childhood as children start to comprehend. Okay, so actually, this is Wikipedia is the definition. That's where that's from. So I'm just going to start off with myself, with my true identity. And one thing I've been sitting back and just looking back and reflecting, and I think it is based on our childhood for me personally. And it's something I've been, I guess, over the years, I kind of been in denial with it. And it's by no means am I omitting and saying this a thing that I'm insecure with or anything like that. It's just, again, it's a self evaluation. And I have to be honest, see who my true identity is. So just from being when we was kids growing up, I come to the conclusion that my true identity is I'm a sense, and it's going to come across different to some people. Everybody have their own way of thinking, of course. But I've been pretty sensitive. When I say I'm a sensitive person, not in the manner to where I get upset or hurt or crying, anything like that. I'm just real sensitive to certain subjects and I react a certain way. So my identity is I'm believing being fair. I think I'm fair with most people. I believe anything that we do, whatever it is that we're doing, I always come across as it should be a fair shot on either side. If it's a disagreement with somebody or something at work and with your relationship, whatever we're doing, I'm a true believer and it should be fair across the board. So that's kind of part of my true identity is just growing up. I'm sensitive on certain subjects more than others, and I express myself. And I noticed that I'm very expressive, very opinionated. I'm not judgmental, but I'm gonna give you an opinion in a heartbeat. So that's just my true identity, and I walk with that, and I walk with that with confidence. I'm not, like I said, walking with that with some kind of insecurity or feeling bad. It's just something that I've noticed over the years, and I haven't changed from that. And I think it's, like I said, based when we was kids on just being the youngest in the family. and I always felt like I had to do extra to keep up with you and Candy and Peaches and Jay. And I don't think y'all ever really gave me a hard time, but y'all did at times. So it always felt like I had to prove myself or do extra to kind of fit in, even though we twins. And I know you're like, what are you talking about? But again, this is just something that I had to come to the truth with over the years. And I just noticed that's my identity. When I was younger and as I am older, I see things in certain situations at work. Again, when I say sensitive, I'm just sensitive to the subject, meaning I'm passionate about it. I take it and I don't wear it on my heart on my sleeve. Again, I'm just passionate about whatever it is the topic is. I'm just passionate about it. I speak on it. And again, I feel like it should be something that's fair across the board, whatever we're dealing with. So I just want to start off with that. Then I'm gonna let you chime in, Matt, and then I'm gonna come back and just give some examples over the years, like I said, of why I feel like the sensitivity, and I'm gonna give other characteristics on how I feel about my true identity.
Well, all right. I like that. All right. So as always, it seems like the topics we talk about are very, very broad topics. It covers many different areas. So as always, I like to bring context to the conversation. So I have like about 5 or 6 categories that kind of make up what a person's self-identity is. And a lot of the things that you talked about, basically is like ingredients, so to speak, that help builds that person's self-identity. So the first one is the personal beliefs and values, experiences and memories. And that's something that you touched on, like growing up and, just as far as being the youngest and how you felt as though you had to do more, I guess, to live up to a certain expectation. So that's what helped, develops a person's self-identity. Then you have the social roles and relationships, psychological aspects. Then you have the intersectionality, philosophical and existential. And then you have the exploring self-identity. So I'm just going to talk about the first 2 first, and then Mark, whatever perspective you have on it, I'm curious to hear about that. So the first one is like the personal values or beliefs and values. So everybody has like core beliefs. And I believe that a person's identity, self-identity can change. One of my biggest things is always about ascending. So as we ascend, in my opinion, we should not be the same person we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And even like yesterday, we should be a different person. But not different person, but ascending in a sense of what we experience can affect our core beliefs. So for you say that you believe your self-identity as being kind of a sensitive person. And so you believe that's your core belief. So nobody can't move you off of that. And it's based off of, some of the things that you experienced growing up. So like I was saying earlier, I believe a person's self-identity can change. And in my opinion, it should change. Now, it's just one sister that used to be one of my clients when I was working at Hand and Stones, and she's big time social media entrepreneur. And she wrote a book called Identity Switch. And that's one of the things that she talks about as far as how some women, they don't know how to be a feminine woman. They don't know what it means to walk in their femininity. And she was basically saying, in order to do that, you have to do an identity switch, because you basically you have to close off of the things that you grew up with and the things that you believed before in order to become that person you want to be. And that's one of the things that, I was talking about as far as with the core beliefs. Everybody have some type of core belief based off of the world around them, the environment around them, and decisions and stuff that they make on a continuous basis. So that kind of develops that person's identity based off of their core belief. You know, let's throw this out there. It's not picking on Christians or anything like that, but that's the first thing that's popped in my mind is some people that believes in religion opposed to somebody that believes in spirituality. That's their identity because that's like their core belief. You can't move them off of it. Even though you may look at that person and like, man, if they would just step out of that linear mindset that they're walking in and just look at things from a different aspect, their life may be different or their experiences might be different. But because their core belief is on that, that's what their identity is. And that's how you can recognize them. And, when I was in church and stuff like that, people always say, I know you're a Christian. I'm like, how do you know I'm a Christian? Because the way you move, your core beliefs, that's your identity. So I hope this makes sense. So basically what I'm saying is, again, in my opinion, a person's identity should change as they ascend. Now, I'm not talking about people that do that code switching, whereas they, in one certain group, they're a certain type of way, and in another group, they're another certain type of way. In a sense, you can say the identity change, but it's really not, because once we go further into this, identity is more than just code switching, just being a certain type of way with certain type of people, and then the values as far as what that person holds deep, their behavior, choices, honesty, integrity, compassion, and ambition. So if that person have a certain set of values, again, that's going to help develop what their identity is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, you spoke or you touched on the one about the code identity. That's the one I was going to kind of talk about next, is because I was reading some of the definitions as you was talking, and it said that too, about you should, in time, your identity should change, or as you say, you should ascend to get better, wanting to be better, improve yourself overall. So with the co-identity thing, that's one thing that I've noticed, and this is where my opinion comes in a lot when I watch and I see how people move. It's two people that I know that I used to work with. They are one way with one group, and then they another way with another group. And I was just sitting there watching them, just like, why do you do that? Like, why do you try to fit in to be with them? And I guess I won't say fit in. I guess it just, to me, I could say also they just they can be like a chameleon. They can adjust to who they're dealing with, and they can talk about a certain subject, and then they with someone else, they can change it up and identify with them. So I guess it's kind of catch-22. I don't want to sit here and throw them on the bus and say they just somebody that's just trying to be like that certain group, because now that I'm thinking about it, they could just be the type of person where they can actually adjust and just get along and identify with everybody. Because I noticed I'm like that sometimes, where it's no topic that I feel like I shy away from. If it's something that interests me, I'll chime in and be engaged with the conversation. And it's something that I just like, yeah, that's just not me. I'm not into that, so I'm not even going to pretend. Now that's somebody that I think code identity, is when they trying to fit in, knowing that that's not even something that they ordinarily would talk about or they even know anything about, but they want to feel like they part of the group. So that I think is important to, for some of us that, that try to do the code switching. But to go back to the other one you was referring to as far as changing over time, I believe that for myself, again, I'm gonna say that I've changed. When I say now, I'm not as sensitive. I think now I would use the word passionate about certain things. I won't say sensitive anymore. If it's something that somebody speak on and I'm passionate about it, and like you were saying, just values, I speak on it, and people tell me all the time, like, man, you passionate about that because you just go in on it. And I'm like, yeah, because again, like I was saying, I feel like values is important. And if it's something that you truly a believer in, like you were saying, that yeah, you should be able to speak on that and that be your identity, but don't change up if you feel like whatever you're saying, nobody else agrees with that. I don't know if that falls into the code switching. If that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, what I'm trying to say, if you speak on something but nobody agrees with it, and you try to switch it and fall back and change up because you feel like nobody can relate, I think that's important too. Be true to who you are with your identity, and know that what you believe in, that even nobody else likes it, that's okay as long as you believe it and you know that that's the way you move. Then you should never feel embarrassed or discouraged for being true to what you believe in. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's important too when it comes to the code switching.
You know what? This topic is really deep in a sense.
Yeah,
So, and I was thinking as far as like with me being in the military,
yeah,
I had to switch my identity, not switch, but my identity was developed again from when I was growing up. And when I
right.
moved to San Antonio, I developed a certain type of identity, because I was in school, I was working at Marriott. So in a sense, I was developing a different identity from who I was when, we grew up in Philly. And then going into the military, I developed another identity, which I think I still kind of have some of that because I still carry a lot of the core beliefs and values that the military instills in the person. So I think I still have that identity. And now I have the identity as far as being a spiritual ascending being because, a lot of my core beliefs and values is centered around, spirituality and stuff like that. So I think again that the identity thing, it should be addressed a lot more than what it is. I think it's something that should be taught in school, whether it's an elective or something like that, just to help people find out who they are and
Mhm.
just to teach them that it's okay to be who you are and to love who you are. Because just being or developing a certain identity is part of life. It's part of the experience of being a human being, being in this universe. So I think that's something that definitely should be addressed at some point. And so I'm going to go to number two as far as experiences and memories. And that's again touching on what you was talking about as growing up. So life events, significant events, both positive and negative. Um, it plays a big role as far as developing who we are as a person. Um, childhood experiences like you brought up, educational achievements, relationships, and career, milestones. So all that stuff help develop who we are, and it help develops that identity. So again, everybody at some point identity is going to change, you know.
Mm.
And I think sometimes some people hold on to one identity, and I think it not cripples them, but it handicaps them in a sense of they're not reaching their full potential because they're accepting and holding on. Okay, this is who I am, and I'm not going to change. And to me, that's detrimental to that person's achievement and ascension because we are supposed to change because what help develops that identity is based on a lot of the things that we go through in life. And we're
Mhm.
going to always experience certain things that's going to, change our values, change our core beliefs, change the experiences that we have, the memories is always going to help us develop another identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's funny. So I'm gonna speak on the group thing real quick again, and then, but I already touched on that in the beginning about the experiences and childhood. But you made a good point when you was talking about when you was military and then you took on a different identity. And I think, in a sense, we all have to have different faces to speak on the social aspect. And I'm thinking about when you think about police officers or
Mm.
lawyers, they have to kind of change their identities, more or less cops, because what they go into,
Hmm.
that world they live in is a definitely different world. They have to be able to have that identity to be able to protect and preserve, and serve, and then come home and be with your wife or your significant other. You have to change the identity to come back and be into the husband or wife uh identity so that way you don't get lost and in other words, bring your work home. So you do have to kind of have different identities. And I agree with that. You have to have it depending on what you're doing, whatever your career is. It don't have to be to where you changing it to be different. Is to change it to be able to move in what you're doing, to be able to function. And when you come home, like I said, their core, who you really are, should never be lost. Now, of course, we want to ascend, but again, just for social, if you work or whatever, your identity can change a little bit, or you want to call it a hybrid, change enough to to adjust. I think that's a good thing. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. I think again, that's obviously it should be something that you want to be able to do, because if you kind of move the same way at home and at work, you're gonna get lost, and you're gonna kind of be bringing work at home and home to work. You know what I mean? So I think you do have to have those different identities to be able to cope with whatever you're doing in life. So I think that's definitely something that's important. But at the end of the day, you got to remain your core, who you truly are, and move with that. Now, with the experiences, that's what I was going to speak on next. So the childhood experiences I had, like I said earlier, I always felt like I had to prove myself to be able to keep up with y'all, and even in school, I kind of had that mentality where I felt like I wasn't good enough, so I had to do a little extra. But then as I got older and I got jobs, and I got to the point where I got always in a position of being an authority or a manager, or so that helped build me to say, you know what, I could do this, and I don't have to feel like I'm lesser, because I mastered my craft to be able to be one of the bosses. So that helped me change my identity as I got older. And now when I'm doing stuff, I don't feel like I have to go all out and prove myself, because I know whatever I want to put my mind to, I can accomplish it, and don't feel like I'm always going to be one step behind. But that's something that I slightly still have, because I catch myself sometimes and I realize, damn, I'm doing it again. But for the most part, it's not as bad as I was when I was a kid, a teenager. So that part, I think that's good. You got to be able to self-reflect and be true to yourself and be honest with yourself, and don't be critical, and just understand that, hey, like you were saying, if you're just sending in the right direction, better, and you're getting good at whatever it is you're doing, then that's when you know that you're doing good for your being true to yourself. So I really believe that that's something that's important. And I love this subject because, again, these last few days I've been doing self-evaluation on all aspects, social, with family, work, myself, everything. And then, that lady that spoke on the true identity, what is your true identity? I think we all need to sit down one day. If you already know, that's fine. If you already figured it out, but if you don't, challenge yourself and see where you really are. What is your identity? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like you're at the right place in your life with that true identity? So I feel like that's something that's, should be done. And I want feedback, to comment, let us know what y'all think about that. How do y'all feel about your true identity?
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So something you said kind of caught my attention. Because you said that who we are, our core belief, should never change. So I'm not trying to have no big debate or challenge anything, but I'm just curious, because to me, we shouldn't be who we were way back. Like our core beliefs should change, because to me, and that's what I was saying a minute ago, if our core beliefs doesn't change, then we're not ascending, in my opinion, the way we should. Because who you were 10 years ago, your core beliefs now is kind of shaping who you are now. And you're not really walking into who you should be, because your core beliefs is still based off of who you were 10 years ago. So who you were 10 years ago should not be the same person you are today. So your core beliefs and values should not be the same. Now, when you're talking about core beliefs as far as treating people with respect, and walking with honor and stuff like that. So just the core belief of being a good human being, that shouldn't change. But I mean, core beliefs, like I was talking about, as far as what builds the actual self-identity, which is the life events. And then next, I'm going to touch on the cultural background. So a lot of that stuff should change.
Mm-hmm.
So your identity, self-identity should change,
Right.
And so another way of a person finding out what their true identity is, and this is something that I've done, not
Mm-hmm.
regularly, but I've been doing for the last 2-3 years, which is journaling. And I got Kiana into it. I bought her a journal for her birthday. And if you've never done it, it's eye opening because the same thing I did a year ago, I was doing the same exact thing today.
Right.
And I'm like, that's crazy. Like, how the hell I'm going through the same exact thing that I did a year ago? And I'm like, so I'm not changing. So my identity, who I am today, should not be who I was, um, last year. And I think one of the big misconceptions is people are thinking that when you say your identity should be different, I think some people believe that they're saying that who you are authentically is not the same. They might have an idea of, oh, you're telling me I'm fake, I'm not real, because I'm not the same person I was, a year ago. So I'm not saying everybody, but I believe some people misconstrued that as far as being their authenticity is being questioned. And it has nothing to do with that. Being authentic is being true to who you are in a sense of allowing yourself to grow and become that better person and allowing your identity to change. Because if you really want to look at it, in my opinion, true self-identity is being like water, as Bruce Lee was saying, used to say, be like water, my friend, is being fluid.
Right.
And just changing with the times and going through life and not allowing certain things to affect you. Because if you go off of the same core beliefs and stuff that you had 5 years ago, you could have been a person that hated a certain type of people. You know what I mean? That could have been your real core beliefs and values. And if you hold on to that, 5 years from now, you're not growing as a person because you're holding on to, well, I believe all Hispanics are stupid. I believe that they don't have no value to United States. You know what I mean? So you're going to treat people a certain type of way because you're holding on. This is who I am. This is what I believe. So I believe it's kind of dangerous when we say, this is who I am to the core.
Right.
When it comes to humanity as a core, treating people with respect, not hurting anybody, that I get. But when there's certain things that kind of navigate what our identity is as far as life, events, cultural background, social relationships, stuff like that. So I'm just going to touch the culture real quick, and I want to hear your answer to what I was asking. As far as like the cultural background, a person is raised and influenced. Their beliefs are influenced by the traditions and the sense of belonging, like you were saying. So their environment and the culture they in, again, help identify who that person is. So some people take on self-identity of a culture that they're in, and that's maybe truly not who they are because they just identifying with the culture. And Black people are big for that. If you don't do a certain thing, if you don't speak a certain type of way, you ain't truly Black.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100. But to go backwards to what you were saying, most definitely, when I say that, I should have put that on there to clarify that. When I say core, when I was saying we should stay true to who we are, core, you hit the nail on the head. I was speaking literally of having morals, meaning your morals should be, like you said, walking with dignity, integrity, respect one another. Don't go around doing things that you know that's going to harm somebody. When I say that, that's what I mean for simple core identity is knowing that you walking and you're doing the right thing. That to me shouldn't change because that's a value that we should all have. Now, do we all do it? Of course not. But I feel like you said, culturally, emotionally, everything, every aspect we think of, that core part, what I mean is, yeah, that doesn't change. Like me, I've changed, and funny you said that about the journal. I don't do the journal, but I do reflection and look back like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing I did, what, 2, 3 years ago. What do they say? You do it 3 times, that's insanity. That's insane to do the same thing repeatedly over and over. So on that, yeah, you don't want to be doing the same thing because you haven't changed your identity. You being stuck or complacent, you want to stay one way. So no, when I say your core, I don't mean that way. I just mean simply the core values that I think no matter what nationality you are, and this is you should want to be respectful. Again, treat others with respect. I feel like that's something that should go without saying. I don't think you should go around mistreating people. Walk with integrity. We all should have that. Even if it's a little, you should still want to have some kind of integrity and dignity. So those are the core that I'm speaking of. I should have put that out there so that way I didn't leave that open. But that was a good question to catch that, to catch that. And the other one was the culturally, I agree with that too. I think that's a big problem is some of us, yeah, we do try to identify and say that's who we are identity wise just by our culture. And some things I don't agree with what our culture says we are. Loud, obnoxious, late all the time is one that drives me crazy because I have a few clients that just do it religiously. And I'm like, seriously, you're just going to be late just because you can? And then jokingly say, well, black people's always late. I'm like, yeah, but that's not a reason to be late though. So that's one that identity, that's not one you want to cling on to and feel like that's okay because that's what we do. No, that's not what we do. That's what you do, and that's something you need to work on. So on certain aspects on that culturally, I would say, yeah, we can't just stick our head and hang our head on that and say, that's my identity because it's culturally, that's how we are as people. No. Some of them is not good, and I don't think we should just, hang our head on that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like everything you were saying, I'm just echoing what you just said, but I agree. When I say core, that's what we want to stay core to, not just being true and being, to me, some people are stubborn. They feel like I'm fine the way I am, so why should I change? And I used to be that guy. I know a couple people like that refuse to change and they think they do nothing wrong. So to me, again, some people don't believe they need to do a self-reflection or they feel like they perfect and everything is right. Sometimes you got to do that check yourself.
I want to just touch on the comment that KJ just shot across the airways. She says, I agree with keeping core values. We should all share or strive to get better and be better. And then she says, we are not always late. I tend to differ there, Miss KJ. But yeah, so getting back to the I'm going to stay here just for a moment because for some reason this is just resonating with me with the whole cultural aspect of self-identity. And it's not, I want to just pick on us, but every culture has that same I'm gonna say issue, but they have that same problem in a sense, is whereas they all identify as, okay, this is who I am because this is what we do as a people. And one of my favorite saying is that a bunch of people are bots, that they are 3D and they're walking around and not being who they truly are. Because I don't believe just because you're of a certain culture that that's what you should identify with. Now, certain aspects as far as who we are as a people, with just some of the biological things that we have, yeah, that part you can't just get away from. But when it comes to as far as like your core beliefs and stuff like that and your values, I believe that we shouldn't be strapped to, well, because I'm in this culture, this is who I am and this is how I'm supposed to operate. And I believe true freedom and a true test of courage is being able to step into and finding out what your true identity is. And that's just for that time period of your life. Because again, as we ascend, our identity will change and it should change, just as mine has changed, through my life span, as far as, like I said, growing up, being in San Antonio for 5 years, then going into the military and now post-military. So I'm still hanging on to some of it as far as the military, but now that I'm going into my spiritual aspect of who I am, that's who my identity is now. So 5 years from now, my identity should not be the same because I should have learned from some of the life events that I've gone through. As far as the cultural background, as I sin, I should be around a certain type of people or different type of people because in the culture of metaphysics and quantum physics, their belief system and core values is different from somebody that don't believe in metaphysics and quantum physics. So again, that's going to help develop and shape who I am as a person. So, and now the next other topics I want to touch as far as the social roles in relationships, family and friends, like you spoke on that earlier, relationships with family and friends help an individual understand themselves and their place in their social structures. So that's interesting because like right now, again, where I'm at in my life, I'll talk to you, but as far as how some families are, how they're really close knit and stuff like that, some people don't step away from their family in a sense of, okay, I'm my own person. My family may have their beliefs and core values and stuff, but that is not going to determine how I should operate as a person. And not picking on anybody, I'm not going to say personal names, but there's certain people that I know that navigate their lives based off of what their dad says and does. And you can see it clear as day that the father still has a strong hand on the on the decision making of that child. And that's one of the things that you was talking about as far as you're learning now as far as who you are as a person when it comes to family and even when, friendships and stuff. I have a friend here and we go to her parties and stuff like that. And some of the people she have over, they drink and smoke. I drink sometimes. I drink when I went over there, but I got to a point where I was looking. I was like, you know what? This is not who I am. Even though I love her as a friend, and stuff like that. But I have to ask myself and look in the mirror and say, okay, do I want to keep putting myself in that space, being that that's not who I truly am? So basically, what I'm just saying, as far as the social roles and relationships and stuff like that with family and friends, has an impact as far as who you are and what your identity is.
Well, that's a good one that you put the social one out there. I mean, I touched on it earlier, so that's
their
a
hands in the
question
way.
that I want to pose to you and all the viewers out there. So I know you were saying that you don't want to be, I don't want to misquote you, but I believe, like I was saying earlier, when you stay true to your core values of who your true identity are. Let's say I'm giving you a scenario. You a person that's a giver, and you give and give, and you just been done wrong. People always burning you, doing you wrong, mistreat you, take advantage of you. Do you feel like at some point you need to change that identity because it seems like you're being taken advantage of, or do you stay true to who you are because that's who you are? You're a giver. You love giving and helping, even though you may not get it reciprocated, but you're getting done wrong. Not everybody, but it's a good amount of people that see it as an advantage to take advantage of you because of that, and you just keep doing it, and you realize that I can't keep doing this for people, but then I'm not being me. So the question is, do you feel like that person should change or adjust, or they just stay true to who they are? And that's what I mean when I say be true to who you are. If that's a person who you are as an individual, you're going to have the right people at some point that's going to come in your life that's going to appreciate that and reciprocate it. So don't lose sight of who you are because the people you deal with, like you said, with the party. Maybe you're just surrounded by the wrong people. So that could be your adjustment, is put yourself in a place where the people won't take advantage of you. But I just want to know, I want to know what you want to say on that. I pretty much have an idea, but.
Okay, I love that. That's a really, really good question. And it had me thinking because I don't want to retract and say, take back what I said.
Yeah.
But you kind of answered it at the end. So as far as you being a giver, don't give to those type of people that's taking advantage of you. So you can still be a giver, but you're giving to people that's going to appreciate what it is that you're doing. And then, like you said, reciprocate that. So in that sense, you still can be true to who you are, as a giver, but it just won't be with the people that's going to take advantage of it and, that don't appreciate it. So, but that's interesting because I look at that as like, okay, is that person's, but you know what? I won't even say that's an identity. I would just say that's a core, not core, but that's who they naturally are. Like there's people that's naturally just givers and there's people that's takers. So in a sense, I won't say that's part of their identity. I just more or less would say that's a part of who they are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it makes sense.
Now I want to touch on the professional roles. So careers. So yes, it was interesting because a lot of stuff you talked about when you opened up, all this, you covered every last one that I'm talking about now. You just said it in a different way. So as far as the professional roles, careers and professional identities often form a significant part of self-identity, influencing how individuals see their purpose and contributions to society. You mentioned that. You was like, once you got to a point, because you was in leadership roles and you saw that, okay, I do have something to give back. So I don't have to compete with Matt, Candy, and Peaches and Jay because I have something that, I'm able to be successful at. So that helped shape your identity as far as who you were at that time. And I already mentioned this before, me being in the military and stuff, it helped shape my identity as far as who I was at that time. So a person's professional role, it helps shapes who they are and what their identity is. And it's interesting because I remember I was talking to somebody and it was like, man, it doesn't make sense that so many people or a person have so many different jobs. Like, why can't you find a job or a career and stay in that field for a long period of time? And I was just thinking, and this is no knock against anybody that's in a profession for an extended period of time, but in a sense, to me, it's like they're not truly experiencing all of who and what they can be because their identity is just that profession. Now they can have other aspects of it as far as like the personal experiences, the culture and stuff like that. But when it comes to a profession, because most of our life, our daily time in life is spent around where we work at. So that's a big part of who we are as a person, what our identity is. So if someone gets in a career and they stay in that career from 20 all the way up until they're like 60, 70 years old, it's like they're not experiencing who they truly are because they weren't put in different positions, where they have to learn different things and experience different things, which is, again, is going to shape their identity. Right. So I look at that as it's a positive, and then again, it's a negative because their true identity, let's say, is an attorney, or if it's a doctor, if they're a bus driver and they've done that their entire lives, when you see that person, like, yep, that's a doctor. I remember him, or I remember him driving the bus. When you identify that person, if somebody's talking about it, oh yeah, I know him. He the dude that drive the bus, the L that goes up to Cheltenham Mall. So I think that's a little sad in a sense because, like, I love the sense that I have so many different aspects of things that I've done in life. So no one can truly say, "Oh, you talking about Matt? Yeah, I know him. He's the one who was in the military for 20 years." You can't say that because now that I'm post-military, I've done the massage thing, and pretty soon I'm about to start the sound therapy. So it's like, yeah, I know him. That's the dude that he was in the military. Then he did the massage. He was a massage therapist. Then he did the sound therapy, and then he's flying planes. So I have so many different identities that I can identify with. That I think that as a person, that's what we supposed to experience.
But do you think, in retrospect, that person's true identity is that person could be just complacent? They content, right? Like you were speaking on for the example, you're saying that person that been in the same job for 20 years. Because I know a person where I work at, and she's been there for almost 20 years and never done anything else. I'm like, seriously, you never want to grow, become a manager, a supervisor? No, I just like going to work, getting my hours in, and go home and mind my business. So you're right in what you're saying. It's, I hate to say sad, but then I started to think, well, maybe this person just, the individual just content on being, go to work, come home. So maybe the identity is truly just to be someone to just go and just be a blue collar hard worker and don't want to do anything extra. I'm not justifying it, but I'm saying maybe that could be the actual true identity is they don't want to grow. They want to be complacent. You wouldn't think most people want to do that, but I guess it's few that gets through the cracks that, just like that. And then, like what you were saying, you Renaissance. So that's kind of your true identity is you like to always evolve. Mm-hmm. So your true identity would be to be someone that's a Renaissance man because you could do so much. So that's why I think true identity would be the core because it's still at the end of the day will define you. Whatever you do is still going to be your definition of who you are at the end of the day because it explains who you are. It's just different avenues. So I think that's interesting. You made that point because it's a person at work that made me think about that. And then I was sitting there looking, and they asked me, "Why don't you be a supervisor?" And I was like, "Man, I've been a supervisor at this place, that place. I ain't trying to be a supervisor again." But then I thought about it. Why not? It's a different company. It may open different doors. So I'm entertaining an idea, not supervisor, but you got to go through the necessary steps. Lead, right. Then manager, then supervisor. But you made me think about that just now when you said that try something different. Even though I've done it other places, but this is a different company. So I think, yeah, that's something we should do as far as our true identity is. If you like to explore and ascend, then yeah, part of it is taking on new roles. So I think that's something we should definitely look at and reflect. So I want this challenge because the lady that I'm speaking of that gave me this idea does a challenge with her clients on true identity. So anybody, viewers out there, it's a personal challenge you do for yourself. And as Matt, you just you opened the format or put the format out there when you broke it down categories. I can't remember each one, but that's the categories that I want you guys to do is write them down, man. You can repeat them. And I want you guys to really take this serious and try to see if your true identity has changed, if you need to change it in all the categories that Matt named. Because I'm going to do it. So I feel like it's a good challenge for yourself. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. This is a good way to challenge yourself, right? To do something to challenge yourself. So anyway, but yeah, I figured I'd put that out there.
Okay, I just want to read some of the comments. Mm-hmm. So KJ, this is kind of going back to what you were saying earlier. She says, you stay true to who you are, but you become wiser with each situation. So you are not taken advantage of, and you are supposed to learn each time. And then Christina says, I don't believe people should change if they are givers, and you'll know when to stop giving to the wrong people. Yeah, so both comments is 100% true. You definitely should not allow somebody to move you as far as who you are as a person. Naturally, if you're a giver, and like KJ was saying that we are supposed to learn. So if you keep giving to that same person, and it's like you're not learning. So basically, they're saying you shouldn't change who you are.
No, I mean.
All right, so moving on to the next one, just covered professional roles. Now, the psychological aspect as far as self-identity, and that is the self-concept, and that is basically individual perspective of themselves, including the self-esteem, how they feel about themselves, self-image, and how they see themselves physically and personality wise. So you was all over this before I even read it. Like every category you hit when you first opened up. So that was on point. So the psychological one, the self-concept is a big one. And I don't know if I said that to you, but I know I've said it on here once before. As far as for me, when I was growing up, and like one of the reasons, I don't know about for you, but the reason why I didn't do sports is because we was pretty skinny, you know, the stuff that they have now, they didn't have back then. And I wasn't into working out until we went to San Antonio. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't play sports. And then when I got into the military, that was one of my goals, is to gain weight. And even to this day, like I was taking the weight gains and stuff. I was up to 220 pounds last weekend, but I was not sick, but I was having complications physically. I was having issues internally. And I believe because it was some of the stuff that I was taking that's just not meant for me to have. And so that kind of shaped my self-identity in the sense of being insecure as far as the way I look on the outside, even though I'm a beautiful person on the inside, and have many talents and a lot of things to offer. But it kind of hinders me a little bit because, I have this self-image of myself of not being good enough because I don't look a certain type of way. And so you can kind of pick out certain people when you see them, the way they carry themselves, and you can say, yep, that person right there, you can tell they got low self-esteem, and so that can be an identifier as far as somebody's self-identity, just because they put so much effort into how they look on the outside. And that's why I had such a big issue as far as not to go back, but to go back on that topic we had as far as with Black women in hair. To me, that's a big ass red flag because that screams they aren't comfortable with who they are. They don't identify with anything. Their self-identity is looking like a European woman, which is the long hair, all that makeup. And then you got some of the celebrities and stuff that's bleaching themselves and getting their facial features restructured. So they identifying with a European way of looking. So I think this one is probably one of the biggest ones out of all of them, as far as the categories when it comes to self-concept, as far as how we perceive ourselves and how we look at ourselves. And I'm pretty sure you have this with clients as far as with the weight, oh my God, I got to weigh a certain type of way or have a weigh a certain type of weight. Whether it's gaining weight or losing weight, that identifies that person as far as who they are. So I'm just, curious what your perspective is with the self-concept development.
This is the good one. This is the one I was waiting for because it is more geared into the training because I'm trained, personal training. And it's something you spoke that this one I will believe. I don't think, dare I say, there's not a person out there that's going to have some kind of self-confidence problem with their appearance. I think we all have it. Some cover it up in different ways, but I think we all have something that we are highly critical of with our body. I just think that's human nature. I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. I think we need to embrace it and understand. I always say your imperfection is your perfection. So you got to embrace it, work on it if you want to better it. So it's funny you said that about us being skinny. My complex was my skinny legs, chicken legs, right? Yeah. So I was with my ex-wife and she used to give me a hard time, you little skinny chicken legs, and why don't you work out your legs? So it gave me a complex, and I've never, and Jay used to get mad at me for the longest time. I would not wear shorts. And I remember telling him like it was yesterday. He's like, what? That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. We was going to go to the park or something, and it was hot. And he's like, man, why are you wearing pants when it's summertime? We should wear shorts. And I told him, I had to confess to him, and he looked at me. You know how Jay looked. Yeah. He raised the eyebrows, said, you messing with me? I was like, no. He said, where you get something ridiculous like that for? And then I told him, he's like, well, forget her. That's her problem. You're trying to hold up an image for something that someone else likes. But what do you feel about yourself? Mm-hmm. And then ever since then, he made me realize that. And I realized for myself when I became a trainer, like I said, you got to embrace your imperfection. So you focus on your weakness and you work on it. And you just tell yourself, why can't you look good with skinny legs? Take care of yourself, look right, walk with confidence. If you don't walk around and be insecure and be true to yourself, nobody else won't really even react to you that way. But that's just
Mhm.
something that, for me personally, that was something that bothered me for years. And I was always trying to hide my legs, but then I had to be true to it. Like, you know what? I'm lean. I embrace my physique. I said, you know what? I'm gonna work with what I got. So now I work and develop on being more lean and defined and make sure I'm more uh, body portion. Instead of imbalance where I big up top and little skinny legs. So that's why I try to keep my whole body frame at the same, so that way it don't look awkward and have people to look at me and point it out because it's so obvious. But yeah, on that one, I think is a number one. I think we all have something that we look at and have indifferences, and part of it is ourselves, and part of it is society. Like you said, they put this image out there. We all feel like we got to live up to it to some extent, not all, but some. And we feel like maybe subconsciously, we might not even consciously be, oh, I need to look like her or look like him. It's just you subconsciously, it's bothering you and you feel like you need to look a type of way. Men with the physique, women with the hair or the boobs. And it's funny because I'm not trying to dominate the conversation on this, but it was a guy that posted the women wearing the booty shorts. And he was saying that if you don't want somebody to look, don't wear them. So I just feel like we at a point on this particular subject is too much out there that's trying to changing us and losing our true identity, embrace ourselves on how we should look. Think about Monique. I always respected Monique when she was big because she rocked that. That's how she did her comedy, but she had to do it because of health reasons. I do
Right.
remember her saying she had to lose the weight because it was affecting her health. But a lot of people was like, how can you go be an advocate for big women and then you go lose all that weight? It's like you contradict. So, and I was like, you know what? At first, I was one of them, but then I had to sit back and listen to her story. She had a lot of health complications, so she had to
Mhm.
lose the weight. But I think that was her true identity because she rocked. That's how she started her comedy. Is always talking about being a big girl, being proud of it. But then she had to realize that she had to take care of her health. So the moral of the story is on this particular subject, you got to be true to who you are and work and embrace it, change it, but don't do it because someone else likes the way you look, or you see it on TV, or you see it in the gym. Work on it for yourself. If you feel like a self-reflection needs to help better yourself, even health-wise, then go do it. But don't do it and lose your identity because somebody else making you feel that way. That's the worst thing to do.
Okay.
Personal, yeah.
All right. So this next one is kind of something we already talked about, and that's the identity development. And that's basically just the process of, taking different areas of your life and basically bringing them together and then just trying to navigate who you are as a person based off of those things that you experience. Okay, so this one is the intersectionality, and that's basically having multiple identities. And that's what you talked about earlier as far as with the code switching, how one
Yeah.
person can be a certain type of way with one group and then another certain type of way with another group. So, and that's a lot of times it's based off of the gender, the race, the ethnicity, the sexual orientation, social economic status. So basically, the intersectionality accepts that these identities interact in complex ways to shape a unique experience and perspective. So I don't know. I don't agree with it. I don't think that's that's something that somebody should do. I think you should be who you are. Um, and I feel as though if you can't be who you are, regardless what economic group that you're in at the time, or what gender race that you're around, or what sexual orientation, if you can't be who you truly are, then to me that's a problem. That's people I don't want to be around. Um, because who I am right now and who I identify as if people can't accept that, then that's not my type of people I need to be around.
Yeah, well, look, that's why it's called true identity. Be true to who you are. I mean, I concur with that. Yeah, I think that's something, and I think some people is good for being, true to who they are and not changing up. Now, again, like I said earlier, just to kind of touch on it a little bit, and I'm not saying you said this. I'm just saying for myself. There's nothing wrong if you call a social butterfly, if you want to use a slang term, like that's somebody that just be able to be sociable with everybody. And a person that comes to mind to me is Dad. He talked to anybody. I remember Mom like, Charles, you'll talk to anybody. You don't care who it is. He was just one of those people that he pick a subject, he'd just start talking, and he just be able to carry a conversation. That to me again, I think that's the identity is not bad, but I watched someone at work the other day literally try to fit in. Not ain't gonna say fit in, but they tried to accommodate the group that they was in, so that way he could be part of the group. And it's not really normally who he is. And I asked him, I said, "Why do you do that?" And he was just like, "Well, I don't want to look like I'm the person that's what did he say? That's stuck up, and I can't identify, talk to, and chill with everybody." I said, "Yeah, but that's not your cup of tea. Just fall back, and people going to respect it. If they don't, like you said, then that's something they have to deal with. But you can't go and try to please them to make them feel comfortable on who you are." I said, "That's just who you are." But that's just something he did. And I was like, "Well, I can't tell you what to do, but I noticed it," and I told him that. He's just like, "Yeah," he kind of downplayed it, but yeah, to me, I don't agree with that. Anybody that does that to me is like you're losing yourself and being true to yourself because you want everybody else to feel comfortable with you. And I'm like, with them, I mean, no, it shouldn't be like that. You 100% be who you are. The right people will gravitate to you, and you affiliate with them. But that going out trying to please others, that's never a good thing because you're losing hindsight of who you are just to make it feel better. So
yeah, we call those posers. When I was in the military, we called them posers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So I mean, to each his own, but yeah, that's not good.
Just to wrap this up, there's a couple things I just want to touch on real quick. So as far as you just spoke on it, being authentic, the authenticity, as far as being true to yourself, and just I think first the person have to find out what their true identity is.
Right.
And once they do that, and then just sticking to it and just being authentic and not code switching or being a poser or whatever terminology you want to use. So now, as far as exploring the self-identity, and you already talked about it, introspection, regular self-reflection and introspection can help, the person as far as understand their thoughts, feelings, and motivations. And then journaling, like I was saying, that's another way. In my opinion, that's the best way to really find out because you're writing down, every aspect of what's going on. And then at a later time, you revisit it. And then it's like, ooh, I didn't know I was still doing that. So that's one way of finding out, exploring your true self-identity. And then therapy and counseling, professional support can bring insight. That helped me a lot. When I took a couple of counseling classes and went to counseling. And then the other one is feedback from others, the right people, I would say, because everybody can't get feedback from. Trusted friends and family that has valuable, perspectives on the aspect of self-identity, and then just being able to apply that to that person. So basically, like I was saying earlier, understanding self-identity is an ongoing journey that evolves with time, and experience is dynamic. So for me, I believe our self-identity will change with time as it should. And like you said earlier, the core belief or core of who we are should not change. But the self-identity, just based off all the things that I mentioned, I'm just going to run over them one more time. So as far as some of the aspects of self-identity is the personal belief, values, core belief, values, experience and memories, life events, cultural background, social roles and relationships, family and friends, professional roles, psychological aspect, which is the self-concept, identity development, intersectionality, and then the philosophical and existential questions. So all those things that we should be doing, just not on a daily basis, quarterly basis, but we definitely should be doing that in our life to find out who we are and yeah, just go from there. So beautiful people, your thoughts becomes your belief, and your belief creates your reality. Mark?
Yeah. So real quick, all the ones that Matt just read off again, guys, challenge yourself. It's a challenge on self-identity and true identity. I think it's something that's a good project to just see where you are and where you at right now in your life. I think it's a good one. Like I said, I'm doing it. So challenge yourself, get comfortable being uncomfortable. STS, stay focused, trust your process, stay consistent. On that note, have a great, wonderful weekend. And I got a special announcement coming next week on our next show. So look forward to that. But enjoy yourself. Be safe. All right.
All right. All right, y'all. Peace. Till next time.